Hey, Thanksgivers. You made it to the live reading for Devon's Cafe. Thank you for joining. We're just going to give it a few more minutes, let people trickle in. I had to hightail it from step class, get myself looking appropriate for this. Okay, definitely excited to read from Devon's Cafe. This is actually my first reading. I didn't do a reading at the book launch at the expo, so this is it. This is actually my first. Yes, girl, it is one step at a time. As you know, on this journey, this creative entrepreneurship journey. All right, let's get started. Thank you guys for joining this live reading of Devon's Cafe. I am your favorite author, Nicole D. Miller. And if you've been on my email list, my social media platforms, you know your girl is always doing something. And so the most recent project I've completed for myself, because I am publishing clients currently, is, drumroll please, Devon's Cafe, my newest book baby. Devon's Cafe is so interesting because it got inspired by a short story that I wrote at Lit Cleveland, their workshop. back in 2017. Shout out to Lit Cleveland. And it was a short story, Lisa, which interestingly enough, Lisa is my second book, Unfinished Business Lisa. It's about her. I fleshed out that short story and made it a novel. But in that short story, there was this cute, charming, Black owned, hip, fly cafe in Harlem, New York, owned by Devon, called Devon's Cafe. And so we glimpsed Devon in that book. Then I released my first novel, When Love Wins. We glimpsed Devon as a love interest, and we see how he's the good guy. He's a gentleman. He's dating Natalie. It seems they're in love, all the things. And we even catch sight of Devon in Unfinished Business Lisa because he's friends with Lisa. Um, and so as he's dating Natalie, they end up hanging out with Lisa and her husband. And so I knew eventually I was going to have to write the main person's story for this series, because clearly I'm doing a series, which is available at NicoleDMiller.com. And I had this desire to write his book to flash back to who he was before he was this well-groomed, gentleman, polished, suave guy, right? In these other books, he just has it all together. He's very established. He's very self-assured. He knows who he is. He's a strong man of God. But honestly, it's kind of boring. Like, okay, what's his weakness? What are the things that, are obstacles and challenges for him? And so I just felt the prompting of the Holy Spirit saying, but who was Devon before he became that guy? And interestingly enough, I was inspired by a close friend of mine, shout out to Piper, an editor for N.D. Miller Publishing, and she actually wrote her book in 30 days. So I gave myself a challenge, a self-imposed challenge to write my next novel in 30 days. And that's when Devon's Cafe was birthed out. And I felt like the Lord was just showing me who Devon was before he became who we know him as. And I definitely got to project some of my own struggles at that age. So the setting is definitely college. So we see Devon, actually, he's finishing up his master's degree. He's in a 5-year MBA program and at Morrison University, which is a subtle nod to the legendary Toni Morrison. And he's finishing up his MBA program. He is so self-assured. He's so focused on the plan, right? He has this stock-clad plan that is just, or ironclad plan that is solid. He's been groomed for it since he was in diapers. His parents have these expectations of him to take on the family business, but he falls in love. He falls in love. And I know, like, a lot of us have been there. And his little plans kind of get interrupted. And not just by love, but by God, by this encounter that he's never experienced before. And then there are a lot of challenges that come his way that he has to navigate as a young adult. So I'm going to read 3 different sections just to kind of whet your appetite on Devon's crew. And I'll give you a quick introduction. So we have his main man, which is his brother, is his closest day one, Darion. And if anyone is paying attention to my writing, they will see that Darion is actually mentioned in When Love Wins. So review your series, your books in Devon's Cafe series. And then we have Antonio, which is his writer. He meets him in college. They are like night and day, but they're best buds, and Devon is very loyal to him. Of course, he has his main squeeze, Jasmine, a chocolate, curvy, intelligent feminist. And you may be thinking that I kind of reflected her after myself. There were some things there, but Jasmine and I definitely have a lot of differences. But I thoroughly enjoy her character, and I look forward to seeing how she appears in more writing. And she has her girl. She has her girls. So she is Sheila. And she ends up, kind of setting things off with Devon. It kind of rocks his world, takes him by storm. He's eating out of the palm of her hand. It's his first love, right? And we know that first love is not always promised. Some people, manage it. I personally did not. But I know that's some people's stories. But the thing is, Devon has to figure out how is he going to keep his plans and keep what he really wants, which is Jasmine. So, and I want to mention her other girlfriend, Kimberly, because she plays a significant role as well. So I'm going to read this portion of the book, which is just a little teaser. The crew is on their way to Cancun for spring break. This is their first big trip. And that's kind of a nod to me and my friends when we did our first big trip for spring break. So I'll read this part. Devon peered out the window while standing in the middle of the bedroom of an old home. Okay, I actually went too early. I'm going to read a different part. I feel so bad for Sheila, baby. She is so salty that she can't come, Jasmine said for the umpteenth time with a pout. The group stood in the airport, decked out in sweats, with only a few minutes until boarding. Unfortunately, Sheila wasn't with them. She had been nauseous since the night before, Jasmine explained. After shopping, she started feeling ill and headed home early to get some rest. That's when her symptoms started, Jasmine informed. Dag, you think it was that hash, egg, and cheese sandwich she had at brunch and bros? Darian volunteered. I was looking at that thing like, is it safe? The others all nodded with matching sullen looks. Devon felt bad for Sheila, and maybe even for Antonio, since that was supposed to be his vacation bay. But he was also super pumped about his plan to discuss marriage with Jasmine. All morning he had rehearsed the conversation over and over and finally felt ready to propose. Bruh, you good? Devon asked Antonio, referring to Sheila's absence. Antonio smiled. Ah, for sure. He bowed his head closer to Devon's and said in a low tone, I already hit that man, so I'm gonna be on the prowl for some new ass. Devon just shook his head. Why am I not surprised? He glanced at Jasmine, huddled in conversation with Kimberly. Now that things were lopsided, he wondered how their trip would play out. The line began to move as their sections were called. Devon, Darian, and Antonio were originally supposed to sit together because they bought their flight tickets at the same time. Once the girls were added, Darian agreed to give up his seat to Jasmine so she could sit with Devon. They planned to keep that arrangement, except now Antonio and Darian would both be with Kimberly. She didn't seem to mind since the boys were going above and beyond to gain her attention. Each boy was cracking jokes and trying to one up the other with stories from his childhood. Devon just rolled his eyes at their shenanigans. You see those two? Jasmine murmured to Devon once they were seated on the plane. She nodded towards some seats a few rows ahead where their friends were. Yeah, I didn't even think Darian liked Kimberly all like that, Devon admitted. He laced his fingers between Jasmine's on their shared armrest beneath a light blue blanket. You know the male ego couldn't care less about being attracted when it comes to winning, Jasmine said frankly. Even though Devon wanted to refute her statements and defend his brother, and possibly the male species, he couldn't. What podcast you been listening to, Miss Thomas? He joked instead. I know it ain't Michael Davis. Nah, he would have said the woman is there to bring division and contention between brothers and only plots to divert and distract men from the real purpose of their assignment of earthly conquest. She had said it in a fake male voice, and Devon laughed. Is he that bad? That brother is the most toxic example of toxic masculinity I've ever seen, she huffed. I'm but another to be anti-white and anti-woman. She had snatched her hand back and folded her arms when she spoke, causing the blanket covering them to slip. Well, what about the Black Girl Magic movement? Or more historically, the feminist movement? There's always negative extremes in any movement. Does that mean we need to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater? Devon said. Jasmine rolled her eyes. If there was a baby with this water, then no. But ain't no baby. Just injured, hurt men spitting injured jargon. Oh, jargon. Maybe you should switch your major to English, babe, Devon said to lighten the conversation. He took back her hand and rebraided their fingers together. There was no way Michael Davis was about to break up this relationship. Nah, you know I'm gonna be the dopest black female filmmaker there ever was. Jasmine lifted her chin and smirked, softening some, but still strong in her black feminist stance. She looked so cute, Devon couldn't resist sneaking a quick peck on her lips, happy to have the rose to themselves. As he nestled by the window, Jasmine rested her face on his shoulder from the middle seat. It was their first trip together, and Devon's first trip to Cancun. There were so many firsts, and excitement, once again, grabbed his insides. Let's take a pic, Jasmine said, and before Devon could respond, she held her phone up for a selfie. After showing it to him, she hurried to post it before she lost service. They both looked a little tired, but giddy in the photo, donning their matching school hoodies. After the flight attendants went over their spiel about safety measures and made sure they were buckled in, Devon leaned back for the 4 hour flight. It would be early in the day when they landed, so he figured he should get some rest. Suddenly, the plane began shaking from turbulence, and Devon remembered his dream. A weird feeling planted roots in the pit of his stomach, and he squeezed Jasmine's fingers. Babe, you okay? It's just a little turbulent, she said. She lifted her head to look at him. Yeah, my bad. Devon loosened his grip with a nervous chuckle. Within a few minutes, the plane found its rhythm again, and the ride smoothed out. It was just a dream, Devon told himself. For the life of him, he couldn't figure out why he didn't believe that it was. So that gives you guys a little preview of Devon's relationship with Jasmine. And thanks, Jamlu, for that encouragement. One of the things I'll share is I was very intentional to have male beta readers because clearly I'm not a man. And this was my first male protagonist. I had a lot of fun diving into the male world, but I wanted to make sure that it was realistic for men. And so you'll notice different types of men in the book. And pop culture would probably label Devon as a beta, although I would say he is sensitive and caring, but there's definitely a hold that Jasmine has over him. And she is very strong in her views. And so we kind of see the dynamics between them in that scene. The next scene that I want to read to you guys is going to give you a preview of Devon's family. So he has his brother Darion, who I mentioned, but he also has a kid sister, Deborah. And Deborah is actually also mentioned in When Love Wins. And of course, she's older there. So now we get to view her as an adolescent or a teenager. This is the beginning of chapter 7, Never Be the Same. Oh no, he's come to torment us again, Deborah announced dryly from Devon's bedroom doorway. Still fitted in her school uniform, she swooned against the frame, draping a hand over her forehead and flitting her eyes to the ceiling. Devon peered up from his bed, where he had been drooling over his friend's social media posts. They were having a blast. What, you still live here? I thought you would have moved out by now, he shot back. Deborah smirked and crossed both slender arms, still clasping her phone in her left hand. You, of all people, should have moved out by now. But welcome home anyway, she said with fake disdain. Deborah was at that age that every parent dreaded. Plus, she was the typical wealthy teenager that anyone would expect, given her upbringing during their parents' most lucrative years. With both Woods bringing in a substantial amount of cash, even with their mother being retired the last 2 years, and being the only girl, and the baby of the family, what else could Deborah be but spoiled? At least, when Devon was coming up, he remembered their father as a stay at home dad and their mom struggling to pay the bills on her own. That was before they got the brownstone. His added responsibility of being trained to run the restaurant aided in Devon's natural bent towards gratitude. Even some of those early year struggles spilled over into Darion's childhood. On the contrary, his kid sister was 8 years Devon's junior and had no recollection of the five of them cluttering a two-bedroom when she was just a baby. All Deborah had were their stories and a few scattered pictures in the family album. Whenever someone flashed back to the good old days, she shot a quick eye roll and heaved a sigh. Easing inside and copping a seat in Devon's desk chair, Deborah asked, "You talked to Dad?" The chair's wheels rolled a little under her weight. "Yeah, he seems to be okay," Devon replied. "I'm going to need you at the restaurant, though, to help this week. What's your schedule?" He got straight to business and, just as he suspected, experienced pushback from his sister. Her forehead furrowed as she flipped her long bundle of Brazilian tresses over one shoulder. Taking her time, she thoughtfully scraped through a handful with long, pointy nails. "I have study group all week for this big exam on Friday for government class before we go on break," she added. Devin clicked his tongue. "Sounds weak to me. You gonna be studying all night every night during our work hours?" He pierced her with an "I'm not buying it" look. Deborah sighed. "I'll be free after 4," she grumbled. Then her face brightened. "Tell me about Cancun," she squealed. "I can't believe you left." That's when his sister's real motive for coming into his room revealed itself. She was practically salivating. Devon half smiled. He moved over so she could sit on his bed and scroll through his phone at the pictures he hadn't posted. As much as Deborah tried to act like she didn't care anything about her big brother's social lives, Devon knew his sister stalked their social media with her fake account. "Wow, I can't wait to go. I was already talking to Amy about it. Maybe next year, Mom will loosen the reins and let me travel for spring break. Everyone at school does, but Mama's always tweaking about money." Deborah rolled her eyes. That's when Devon's annoyance surfaced. "Yeah, well, maybe if you got a job or even helped out at Jack and Jill more, you would be able to travel with your money. Darian and I used our own money for this trip, he pointed out. She scoffed. "That's what parents are for. I mean, what else do they have to spend their money on but us?" Deborah's face oozed skepticism. Devon smacked his teeth in amazement. "You really believe that, don't you?" Okay, so that is the end of that session, that scene. I wanted to give you guys just an idea of the dynamics of Devon's household. I'm laughing at my friend that's like shake my head because Deborah is definitely a trip. But one of the reasons I wanted to share that scene was because I had such feedback from my editor and one of my beta readers about how well I captured that character. You guys can decide if you agree. But we do see some character growth with Deborah, and that's one of the things I love about this book is that there's character growth in every character, which, that's always a win. This last scene is beginning at chapter 9, so we're a couple chapters ahead. And there's a little bit of tension happening in Devon's relationship. He is anxious about some of the things he's seeing surface. He's not with Jasmine anymore. He had to go home for family emergency, which is that interaction we see with his sister. And so, because he is not around her, he's seeing some things that are upsetting him. And so, he reached out to his brother to just, have eyes on the situation. So, we're going to open this scene with his brother giving him feedback. Bro, now ain't nothing going down on my watch. Antonio would be crazy. I mean, he crazy, but he ain't that crazy, Darian said. And they both like to flirt. But as far as I know, we all just having a good time. A long sigh of relief oozed from Devon. He knew his brother would keep it a buck and wouldn't try to sugarcoat anything if he had peeped something. I mean, you sure you trust her? You tweaking about her dipping out on you after just a few days. Darian shrugged as his gaze shifted. Devon was silent. He could see his brother's point. Clasping his neck with a hand, his face scrunched in thought. I've never felt like this about anybody before, D. You know that. And I'm ready to start my life. Darian said, I know, I know. I got you. Just chill. We're going to all be back at campus and everything's going to get back to normal. Devon appreciated his brother's words. Then, within the hour, a much sober Jasmine called. She seemed back to her normal chipper self, filling him in on the day's excursions. This time, before they ended their call, she said, Love you. Talk soon, babe. Okay, so it was all in my head. Feeling at ease, Devon stretched out his limbs while on his bed and smiled. A slow realization then dawned on him. Now that his anxiety over Jasmine had dissipated, the message from God that he received while at the office was loud and clear. God was telling Devon that he had something else for him. He was telling him that Jack and Jill was not in his future long term. Devon lay there for a second, meditating on this revelation. For decades, he had been preparing to inherit his father's dream. Now, suddenly, with his newfound faith, he felt strongly that he was being led in a different direction. Devon wasn't entirely sure whether that direction included LA, but he had this urgency that it for sure didn't include Jack and Jill. Trepidation sank fangs deep into his stomach. In response, once again, that unction came to him. Boldness. Devon gulped. But then, love erupted in his heart. And this time, it wasn't from God, it was from him. For the first time, God was asking Devon to do something for him. Devon was realizing that this new relationship with God wasn't just about God loving him, it was about showing God that he loved him back. God was asking Devon to trust him with this future. Love danced in Devon's belly, spiked up to his chest, and exploded in his heart. He loved God. Okay, God, I got you. It's me and you, Devon said out loud. So that snippet is a preview or a glimpse of Devon's spiritual experience. His relationship with God begins in this book. In the other books, we kind of already see it established. But in this book, it was fun to kind of play around with the beginning of the faith journey, which my friends and I experienced in college. So this is also infusing a lot of my spiritual experiences in college. And it's definitely charismatic. It's definitely describing God in a way that is very personable. So he is a character in the book. And the way that he communicates through visions, through dreams, through different gifts of the Spirit. And that was something else that was heavy on my heart with writing this book, were these areas of Christianity and literature that I wasn't really seeing us go there. And I'm sure there are some representation, but I felt like we need to do it more. And so you'll definitely find a lot of the gifts of the Spirit. You'll find a lot of those new beginning highs that we have with God, that honeymoon period. But there's also, like I said, a lot of challenges, a lot of struggles. And when I look back to my journey with God, it definitely started out that way. The high highs and the low lows. So yeah, those were just some glimpses of Devon's Cafe. I'm really excited to let you guys know that it is now available on Audible. So if you appreciated hearing me read it, you can now hear me read it on Audible. So I'm going to wrap up this live reading of Devon's Cafe. And I so appreciate you guys joining. I so appreciate you supporting me. You know, my passions are Black culture and faith. And so getting to infuse those ideas in my writing is such a joy. And the goal is really to make God tangible and make him love with skin on and have him meet us in our everyday circumstances so that we know that we're not alone. So you can learn more at NicoleDMiller.com. Enjoy your evening. Talk to you soon.